Anyway, I'm here with Mel Eslyn, writer, director of Biosphere, and I gotta say, this is gonna be one of my top movies this year. I absolutely loved it. Um, I'm not sure
That's,
what we can. I'm not sure what we can talk about.
I don't know either.
Um, I guess. Well, so you've worked a lot with the Duplass productions. I guess we'll just start with that.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of producing. What's kind of your job as a producer from I'm sure it's different from film to film, but
Yeah.
I've heard in an interview that you and Mark did with Scott Mance, sorry, that you were kind of you're kind of a hands-on producer. So what kind of
hmm
do you do from film to film?
I mean, it is different every film. I always call the producer like the one who does everything. You're like first and last out, and kind of the mother of the project in many ways. And you can fulfill many functions there. And I used to be very, very hands-on. I was kind of like the lead logistical creative producer working hand in hand with the director, which I still do on a creative level. But nowadays I run Duplass Brothers Productions, for the last 7 years. So it's really become, at any one time now I'm doing 20 projects, where before it was like dive into the one in the moment. So now it's really just creatively keeping everybody supported, moving forward, keeping a tabs on things. If somebody needs another opinion, you're there. So it's the same but different. But again, it's like you're still the last person last out, although you're never really out. A producer is attached to the project for life.
Yeah. And how do you choose the projects that you go about? Like, I imagine you probably turn some down. Like, are there any that you're like, this just isn't right for me, or I don't get it? You're gonna have to have someone else do it, or maybe go to something like what's kind of your process there as far as getting excited of something or seeing if that's something you want to spend your time on?
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved over the years. When it was just me as an indie producer, it was all gut based. What do I kind of said yes to a lot more than I probably should have, but it was what do I want to spend the next year or two on? What am I falling in love with? And, nowadays being sort of like a producer, but also head of a mini studio, there's a lot of other things that I have to take into account, the money of it all, the time, the resources. And so the process is usually like I have to check a couple boxes, which is like, am I in love with the material? Is it going to be profitable, whether that's money or just soulfully or just worth it to put out in the world? And do I have the bandwidth for it? Because I think, we all get really excited and then we want to make many, many things. And I don't want to ever spread myself too thin.
Yeah. I've also heard that in a couple of interviews you did that this is your directorial debut, although I don't know that that's accurate because you directed some TV episodes. Looks like a couple, 3 episodes of Room 104, some shorts. So that's not directing, but
Yeah.
for some reason this is like your coming out party, which is a great one, by the way. But I guess it. So where's the difference between being a producer and being a director come from? Like, what's the differences?
Yeah.
And is this something you want to do further, or is this something you kind of did and it's like, nope, I'm fine with producer? Or is this something you're like, yeah, that was great, let's do another one?
I mean, this was always the plan. Producer was never part of my plan. I met Mark Duplass and took a very long detour to get back to here. But I love directing. In many ways, when you're a producer, you're kind of a stand-in director or a backseat director, depending upon the circumstance. I've worked with a lot of actors who, direct the movie they're in. So you sort of become their eyes and ears that monitor. You're really the one keeping it going on set in many ways. So I was kind of like primed for this. And yes, I've done a bunch of TV. And so really it was just like waiting to figure out what was the first one to be my directorial debut feature. And also just making the time, because again, I say yes and I want to make so many other people's movies. And it's like, when do you find the time for your own movie?
Yeah. And you've also said that this being your first feature length movie that you're directing. You wanted to not hurt yourself by making it too big.
Hmm.
Is the next one? Are you going to hurt yourself on the next one, or you looking to get bigger,
I
or you like staying in this lane?
Oh my God, it's so funny. I already did the next project and I did hurt myself physically and emotionally. So I already didn't listen to myself, but no, it's good. I did this one and then I did the next one, which I can't announce yet, but yeah, I'll keep learning and perfecting the right amount.
Cool. Also, this is a strange question, but I'm really fascinated with writers and their process. By seeing you directed, you wrote 5 episodes of Hoarders. Now, I think most people know what a screenplay looks like. You got the slug line, action line, character dialogue, so on and so forth. Stand it up and stand back. It looks like a bunch of hourglasses stacked on top of each other. What does a script for Hoarders look like?
Yeah, it's so funny. I took that as like a night job to just pay bills. Um, and was like, oh wait, you write for reality TV, which really means like you're editing, you're constructing this. So, they go shoot Hoarders for like a week or whatever and come back and I'd be like handed this footage and you basically piece it together and come up with the story of the episode. And you build that arc, which sometimes means building an that actually didn't exist, which I think we all assume reality TV does at this point, anyways. But it was a really interesting experiment and way of quote unquote writing. But at times it's sort of heartbreaking because you're having to create like this full arc, so people have to look more pathetic than they might be in real life, and it gets a. I wouldn't do it again, but it was interesting is the right word.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing the other writing credits you had were a lot more fun. I heard about your writing experience on Biosphere, but maybe you can kind of elaborate on that a bit because it sounded like Mark Duplass had this idea and you were just inspired and just went along with it. And you were talking about how you were continuing writing as you were shooting. So I guess the question would be like, when you're writing as you're shooting, are you actually typing out pages, here you go, or are you just kind of spitballing with actors on set saying, you know what, say this instead because what we have on the page isn't quite working the way we want it to, or how does that
Yeah.
work?
I think there's always a little bit of that. I mean, with this one specifically, Mark and I did, Mark had like half the idea and then I filled in a bunch and then we did an outline together. And he was going to take the first pass and he got like 14 pages in and was like, I don't know if there's a movie here. And I was like, there it is. So I went into the first pass and we kind of went back and forth. And at a certain point, Mark, he's a big believer in improv, which I've done and I love, and he's really great at it. But something with this film made me want to really drill down the dialogue. So it was many, many drafts before we got to this one. And we only had 15 days to shoot. So there wasn't a lot of rewriting we could do while going. So there weren't new pages issued. But the way Mark and I work is we are constantly rewriting throughout the whole process. So it would more take the form of like at lunch, one of us would have an idea or rethink something, or we'd go home and sleep on it and be like, you know what we should do instead today with this scene and try it out. And the great thing is like Mark and I have worked together for so long and are very much like a brother and sister team that Sterling multiple times would be like, you guys are like talking, but you're not saying words. What's going on? And we'd be like, oh, we're in it. We're in it together. And we would present him sometimes on the spot with new versions of a scene. And sometimes he was game. And then sometimes he'd push back and be like, you guys need to trust what you wrote. I love that. Like, can we just get one of those takes? And so it was a really cool process, I think, by that time with the three of us.
Yeah. Well, also, as we're speaking, the WGA is on strike, but you predominantly work in indie movies. Does the WGA strike affect what you do negatively,
Mm-hmm.
or are you part of the WGA and like how does that work?
Yeah, Mark and Jay and I are all in the WGA, and just like as somebody who runs a company and tries to hold all of us to this very strong standard of morals, when the strike hit, I'm like, well, I'm a member and I voted for the strike. So obviously I can't do that part of my job. But also just as a company, I'm like, I want to support this. I do agree with a lot of what we're fighting for. And so really just said like, we're halting on all narrative development. Even, there's a lot of people who are like, well, you can keep going because this isn't WGA. And I'm like, well, that hurts the overall fight. We all kind of have to be in this together.
Yeah. Do you think also along with the WGA strike, like a lot of the big blockbusters coming out are kind of not doing as well as they should be? Do you think maybe that this will be kind of the perfect storm that'll leave a little crack for indie movies to get back into theaters the way they once were?
I hope so. It's hard because, you work so hard on an indie film, and that's been the only thing about the strike where I'm like, I really hope like we still get to put our movie out there and people support it, because it's like there's so many people who work on a movie, it's never hurting just one person. It's hurting like 50, 100, so I am hoping there's like a little bit of space where we can slide through. We very strategically released today on July 7th to like get in between some of the blockbusters. So staying hopeful.
Yeah. Well, we have my co-host Bruce has a What's in the Box segment where he has people put movies in the box, and every week he pulls one out and we watch it. These are movies that are like close and dear to you that you don't think enough people have eyes on. But I actually want you to put two movies in the box. One for you personally, one movie that you like to put in the box, but also another movie that you've produced that, oh, I worked on this movie. It was really good. And it didn't catch on. I wish people would watch this one.
And these are movies you're going to watch?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the one that I would put in that I'm a fan of is called The Cataclysm. And that is by director Todd Rohal, which is a very underrated, amazingly funny indie film that came out like maybe 10 years ago. Amazing DVD with a short film called Sasquatch Birth Journal 2 that also is on the DVD if you can get it. So I would throw that in, and then of my own that I've worked on, man, I love them all in different ways. I think the one I would throw in is called Duck Butter. That was, in my opinion, one of the underappreciated films that I just felt like we made with a lot of heart, and I just wish more people understood it.
Yeah,
and it's called Duck Butter.
I love the title. I had a friend that had a band called Duck Butter, so that speaks to my yeah.
Amazing.
Well, Mel, it's been a pleasure, and again, congratulations on the movie. I wish we could talk more deeply about it, but once art's out and they're in the world, then everyone gets to talk about it. The conversation gets to be started. And so thank you for at least starting the spark of that conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you.
All right. Thank you much.
All right, bye.